This is Kimberly Schipke, biomedical engineer and founder of the Biofield Lab, and inventor of the Spectrochrome Laser. The title of this talk is What is the Biofield? I'd like to dedicate this to my mentors, Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher and Dr. Valerie Hunt. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. Zhang has called the biofield the electromagnetic body and described it to be a complex, ultra-weak field of chaotic standing waves, a dissipative structure of electromagnetic fields that forms the energetic anatomic structures including the chakras and acupuncture meridians. The biofield is a composition of various fields produced by ions, molecules, and cells which make a complex human system with immense electromagnetic capacities. The biofield generated by these charged particles condense to create a body visible to the eye, yet has electron clouds which extend into space, interacting with the fields in its environment. In Harold Saxon Burr and F.S.C. Northrup's The Electrodynamic Theory of Life, they state the microscopic physicochemical constituents do determine the character of the field. No one cognizant of modern physics and physiological chemistry can deny this. But this relation between field and particle is not, as traditional modern scientific theory has assumed, an asymmetrical or one-way relation. The field both determines and is determined by the particle. There's an expression that you are a product of your environment. And yes, the space around you can shift and alter you. But you also have the power to go in and light up a room. That power is within you. In Beverly Rubik's paper, The Biofield Hypothesis, its biophysical basis and role in medicine, she describes the biofield below. This paper provides a scientific foundation for the biofield, the complex, extremely weak electromagnetic field of the organism hypothesized to involve electromagnetic bioinformation for regulating homeodynamics. The biofield is a useful construct consistent with bioelectromagnetics and the physics of nonlinear, dynamical, non-equilibrium living systems. It offers a unifying hypothesis to explain the interaction of objects or fields with the organism, and is especially useful toward understanding the scientific basis of energy medicine, including acupuncture, biofield therapies, bioelectromagnetic fields comprising the biofield, as well as its holistic properties may account for the rapid holistic effects of certain alternative and complementary medical interventions. Even though medical science has been largely focused on the mechanical and chemical aspects of the body, especially for the last 7 decades, there have been a number of researchers prior to and throughout this time period who have done extensive investigation into the electromagnetic body. However, the field of subtle energy research has been limited by the sensitivity of the technologies and their capability to detect minute changes in and around the body. Advancements in technology are allowing the biofield to be explored like never before. What is understood so far is that the biofield is composed of a series of fields, electric, magnetic, and electromagnetic, as well as other yet undefined subtle energies. The properties of these fields and how they relate to the physical anatomy and health of the body will be discussed here, as well as technologies and methods used to measure varying aspects of the biofield. First, we'll discuss electric fields. An electric field is a region of space surrounding charged particles and is defined by the electric force per unit charge. Due to charge distribution, the electric field lines start at one point and end at another. The electric field moves away from the positive charge and moves towards a negative charge point. So the positive charge is repellent and the negative charge is attractant. Electric fields alter molecular and atomic configurations in dielectric substances. All atoms polarize when placed in an electric field. A corona discharge is created when air molecules are ionized due to high electrical discharge around an electrode, which creates a region of plasma. The flow of electricity in the body is created by the flow of electrically charged particles called ions. In the case of the human body, these ions are usually calcium, potassium, sodium, or magnesium, which flow in and out of the body cells due to various stimuli such as touch and sound. These currents begin at conception and seem to guide development and differentiation in the cells of a growing fetus. Integral membrane proteins span the plasma membrane from outside to inside the cell. They have external protrusions into the fluid surrounding the cell with terminal glycoprotein strands that sense electric fields and form receptor sites for chemical stimuli. Inside the cell, they can make contact with enzymes and the numerous fine tubules and filaments of the cytoskeleton. It has been found that the role of the passive electrical properties of each tissue interacting with the field to which it is exposed impose certain highly specific changes in the energy characteristics to which an embedded cell will respond. These properties may change as disease alters the composition and structure of the tissue. There is evidence that strong direct current electric fields may increase bacterial mutation rates. The electric field generated by specific organs like the heart and the brain have been studied by medical professionals using highly sensitive equipment. HeartMath Institute has found the heart's electric field is approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. HeartMath co-founder Howard Martin explains how emotions play a role in altering the electric field of the heart in his article titled, "Discover the Ultimate Power of Your Heart." He states, "The electrical energy produced by the heart radiates outside the body into space. The heart's field is not static. It changes depending on what we are feeling. For example, when we are feeling emotions like anger or frustration, the frequencies in the field become chaotic and disordered. On the other hand, when we are experiencing emotions like compassion, care, appreciation, or love, the frequencies in the field become more ordered and coherent. In a sense, through the electromagnetic field created by the heart, we are literally broadcasting our emotions like radio waves." This research gives validity to the feeling one gets when they can sense the tension in the room, if two people had been arguing and the resulting chaotic field is tangibly felt. Communication is key. Absorbing and processing the information provided by the other person to respond neutrally is one way to communicate. Another way is to deflect what the other person is communicating so information is not processed. This creates tension or resistance in the person avoiding input while the other person does not feel heard or understood and causes frustration. Sometimes one person can stay grounded and neutral while the other person expresses themselves to release emotional charge out of their system. When your friend needs to vent, then you can be a good listener and absorb and ground the charge they release. In the 1960s, Robert Becker began studying regenerating and non-regenerating amphibians, salamanders and grass frogs, respectively, with regard to the electrical activity at the stump after amputation, where he found the tip of a salamander's limb becomes more strongly negative, indicating a wound potential. Over the course of a day or so, the tip reverses to a positive potential, then reverses again after a few days to a negative. The frog, on the other hand, displays only the first two stages of this process. In 2005, I worked at Louisiana Tech at their Institute for Micromanufacture, where I tissue engineered blood vessels. We used a technique called layer-by-layer assembly, where we would use alternatingly charged proteins to construct tissues. We would use fibrinogen and collagen. One would be more positively charged, the other would be more negatively charged. So as we would layer these two different proteins together, we eventually created a blood vessel. This led to further exploration of electric fields and their impact on the body, which influenced Becker's groundbreaking book, The Body Electric: Electromagnetism and the Foundations of Life. Becker and his colleagues have produced remarkable stimulation of bone formation and healing in recalcitrant fractures by introducing low-current DC electrodes into the fracture site. They also report the induction of articular cartilage by similar means. Electrical voltage changes have been measured and studied in healers who use their hands for healing. In studies of non-contact therapeutic touch, 6 out of 14 experienced practitioners had surges recorded of 4 to 221 volts, with durations ranging from half a second to 12.5 seconds. These surges increased in frequency during therapeutic sessions with the patient. In William Adie's 1981 paper titled "Tissue Interactions with Non-Ionizing Electromagnetic Fields," he states, "A body in an otherwise uniform electric field distorts the field so that electric gradients at the surface of the body are markedly increased. For humans in the erect position close to the ground in a vertically oriented field, this enhancement is maximal around the head. Thus, the body presents an equivalent area at the head substantially larger than its physical cross-section. This is associated with an increase in the displacement charge per unit area in the field surrounding the head. The capacitance to ground is maximized when the person stands on the ground and minimized when he is suspended far from the ground. The substantially larger electric field gradient at the head may be an attribute of the biofield which can be seen by clairvoyants and depicted in artwork as a halo or nimbus of charged light around the head. Next, we will discuss magnetic fields. Unlike electric fields, magnetic fields create closed loops instead of charge moving from one point to another. Other than the magnetic field surrounding a magnet, magnetic fields can also be created by movement of electric charge. Ampere's law states that wherever there is an electric current, there is a magnetic field. A moving charged particle produces a magnetic field at right angles to its direction of motion. If you think about the electricity that's moving up and down the spine, you would know that it generates a magnetic field perpendicular to it. Cells generate tiny electric currents as a result of charge flow and changes in membrane potential from stimuli, and thus generate tiny magnetic fields in the surrounding space. Voltage-gated ion channels respond to the voltage difference between the inside and the outside of the cell. You'll see in this diagram that voltage changes outside the cell stimulate voltage-gated channels to open and allow ions to pass through the cell membrane. Magnetic properties of matter can be traced to charge motion, whether over long distances, as in the flow of conduction electrons, or in charge motions close to or within an atom or molecule. Each orbital electron can be considered as providing its own magnetic moment of the atom. An orbital electron also possesses an intrinsic magnetic moment since it can be considered as a charge spinning about its axis. The nuclei of most atoms also have magnetic moments, which are about 1,000th as large as the orbital and spin magnetic moments. The magnetic moment of an atom as a whole is the sum of the three moments. An imposed magnetic field tends to cause the magnetic loops within each atom and molecule to align with the imposed field. This paramagnetic effect of alignment in the presence of an external magnetic field is therefore greater at low temperatures. On the other hand, thermal motion tends to disalign them. Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, is a commonly used medical device which uses the body's natural magnetic properties to produce detailed images from any part of the body. The hydrogen nucleus, single proton, is used for imaging purposes because of its abundance in water and fat. When the body is placed in an MRI scanner which produces a strong magnetic field, the protons' axes all line up and they create a magnetic vector oriented along the axis of the MRI scanner. The radio wave is sent in pulses and the response from the hydrogen nuclei reported providing an image. This device operates a distance from the body within the biofield. The SQUID, or superconducting quantum interference device, is an extremely sensitive magnetometer capable of measuring the biomagnetic field produced by a single heartbeat, muscle twitch, or pattern of neural activity in the brain. In 2004, Roland McCready presented research from the HeartMath Institute where they studied the magnetic field of the heart as compared to the brain. He states, "The magnetic field produced by the heart is more than 100 times greater in strength than the field generated by the brain, and can be detected a number of feet away from the body in all directions using the SQUID-based magnetometers." The magnetic field generated by non-touch practitioners who heal within the biofield has been measured by highly sensitive Gauss meters, which have a digital output and a resolution of 0.001 Gauss, from direct current to 20,000 Hz. With advancements in technology, the subtle energy involved between a healer and the person being treated is now being studied more in depth than ever before. The intention of thought to heal a person without physical contact is now a quickly growing area of research for its more gentle approach to regaining wellness. Magnetite biomineralization has been found in single and multicell organisms, humans, and has been found in Precambrian fossils. Studies into the ferromagnetic properties of human brain tissue found a minimum of 5 million single-domain crystals of biogenic magnetite per gram for most tissues in the brain, with clumps of between 50 and 100 particles. Researchers have found about 20% of pineal cells in pigeons, guinea pigs, and rats respond to changes in both direction and intensity of the Earth's magnetic field. Migration may be influenced by exposure to changes in the Earth's magnetic field. Research into the biological effects of changes in the Earth's magnetic field have been ongoing for over 30 years. It has been found that experimental inversion of the horizontal component of the Earth's magnetic field significantly decreases synthesis and secretion of the pineal peptide hormone melatonin, which powerfully influences circadian rhythms and reduces activity in its synthesizing enzymes. Next, we will discuss electromagnetic fields. In electromagnetic theory, it is well established that rapid movements of charge can become a source of electromagnetic radiation. Transmissions of radio, television, Wi-Fi, and smart meters using antenna are based on this theory. The human body also communicates intercellularly through electromagnetic fields, and as stated earlier, broadcasts our emotions like radio waves. William A.D. studied the impact of extremely low-frequency electromagnetic fields on the physiological signaling across cell membranes. He states, however, much recent research has shown that imposed weak electromagnetic fields in the extremely low-frequency spectrum below 100 Hz at intensities in the pericellular fluid many orders of magnitude weaker than the membrane potential gradient can modulate actions of hormone, antibody, neurotransmitter, and cancer-promoting molecules at their cell surface receptor sites. Similar sensitivities have been observed for radio frequency fields that are amplitude modulated at extremely low frequencies. These modulating actions of electromagnetic fields suggest highly cooperative processes in the underlying physical mechanisms. A.D. identified 3 groups of intracellular enzymes that respond to signals initiated at cell membranes as a response to electromagnetic field exposure. These enzymes are membrane-bound adenylate cyclase involved in activation of protein kinases through conversion of ATP to CAMP. CAMP-independent protein kinases that perform messenger functions, and ornithine decarboxylase, essential for growth in all cells by its participation in the synthesis of polyamines necessary for DNA formation. These responses were found to occur with or without concurrent interactions with humoral stimuli, and all were calcium dependent. Selective imposition of electromagnetic fields at radio and microwave frequencies is recognized as a unique tool of understanding aspects of molecular biology of normal and abnormal growth, cell-mediated immune responses, and intrinsic processes of communication between brain cells. Altered electroencephalographic activity has been reported during and following prolonged exposure of low-level sinusoidally and pulse-modulated radio and microwave fields. William Weiss studied EEGs of volunteers exposed to radio frequencies and microwaves. He found some volunteers' EEG traces displayed desynchronization of alpha wave amplitude, and slow waves appeared when a radio signal source was on. Also, there was a diminution and desynchronization of alpha wave amplitude on the order of 20 to 50% occurred at other radio frequency irradiations, and slow waves of increased amplitudes also appeared. Please note that this research is over 50 years old, and this was presented at the first congressional hearing on radiation health and safety. Radio wave sickness is a term Eastern European and Soviet researchers have applied to a group of clinical syndromes observed in persons who are exposed to electromagnetic fields in their work. Researchers have found that the hypothalamus as well as bacterial growth and development are affected by microwaves. In William A.D.'s paper entitled Tissue Interactions with Non-Ionizing Fields, he goes on to discuss the geomagnetic fields of the Earth. There is a continuous spectrum of natural environmental electromagnetic fields of terrestrial origin from direct current to about 3 kHz. Some change markedly with altered weather patterns. Others are related to the Earth's geomagnetic field. This is influenced by particle radiation reaching the ionosphere from solar flares during years of high sunspot activity in the 11-year solar cycle. In fair weather, the steady atmospheric electric field is about 150 volts per meter, but may increase to 10 kilovolts per meter in thunderstorms. The Earth's magnetic field of 0.5 Gauss may be increased several-fold during these storms, particularly at high latitudes. There is a series of resonances in this background spectrum at frequencies between 8 and 32 Hz. These Schumann resonances arise as a cavity resonance between the Earth's surface and the concentric conducting shell of ionospheric particles at heights between 80 and 200 kilometers. The Schumann resonance is known to be 7.83 Hz, and its nickname is the heartbeat of the planet. This frequency and its harmonics are responsible for helping maintain the rhythm of the body's cycles. It is so important that it is played on space shuttles to help keep astronauts healthy while they are outside of the Earth's ionosphere. Dr. Valerie Hunt conducted research using an electromagnetically shielded or mu room and found that when the electromagnetism was removed from the room, people went to pieces, having emotional breakdowns for no particular internal reasons. When ambient electromagnetic energy was restored to the room, participants found themselves feeling fine again. This would imply that the presence of electromagnetic fields is necessary for the organism to maintain a sense of coherence and togetherness. The electromagnetic communication of various parts of the human body are now beginning to be explored. Burberry and colleagues found the primary cilium to be a complex signaling center, as well, stating that fluid movement through the tubules and mechanosensory activities of the cilium may have an important impact on cellular responses. In addition to responses induced by fluid shear stress, cilia have important functions in pressure, touch, and vibration sensation. In addition to receiving vibrational information, the cilium may also transmit information about the state of order or disorder within the cell. In his book, The Biology of Belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton describes this process, but extends the cellular activation to respond also to light and sound electromagnetic fields. He states, receptor antennas can also read vibrational energy fields such as light, sound, and radio frequencies. The antennas on the energy receptors vibrate like tuning forks. If an energy vibration in the environment resonates with a receptor's antenna, it will alter the protein's charge, causing the receptor to change shape. Because these receptors can read energy fields, the notion that only physical molecules can impact cell physiology is outmoded. Biological behavior can be controlled by invisible forces, as well as it can be underpinning for pharmaceutical-free energy medicine. In Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion, she explains how internal biochemistry, the neuropeptides and receptors correlate as emotions, beliefs, and expectations, which influence how a person experiences and responds to the world. She states, your subconscious mind is really your body. Peptides are the biochemical correlate of emotion. They provide the body's most basic communication network. This means that emotional memory is stored throughout the body, and you can access emotional memory anywhere throughout the network. A new branch of research has been created called psychoneuroimmunology, which studies the disease patterns expressed by psychoneurological disturbances. For example, a stressful childhood has been shown to be a predictor for inflammation later in life. Studies have also shown that higher depression scores, higher C-reactive protein values, and lower heart rate variability are independently and additively associated with metabolic syndrome. Next, we will discuss torsion fields. Torsion fields is one of the names given to the more subtle aspects of the biofield. Torsion fields have also been referred to as orgone, ode, tachyon, ether, Tesla waves, scalar waves, the zero-point field, and more. There is no agreed-upon scientific consensus on these more subtle aspects of the biofield. Torsion fields are theorized to the mitigating medium for distance healing, which occurs instantaneously and which research has been shown that to be impossible to be transmitted through classical electromagnetic frequencies. There are three types of torsion fields: E fields, which are electric, S fields, which relate to spin, G fields, which relate to gravity. The torsion field and its emanations are subtle energy fields. Generators for these fields can be shielded against electromagnetic fields, and the torsion field still manifests itself through such shielding. Nuclear and astrophysicist Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher developed a unified field theory in 1971 at the University of California at Berkeley, in which she expanded Einstein's field equation E equals mc squared and added the torsion effects of the spin of the electron as well as time. Although the mass of the electron is small compared to the mass of the nucleus, it still plays an important role in the movement of the atom. The moon is much smaller than the Earth, yet its spin and rotation around the planet controls the ebb and flow of the ocean and keeps the planet in orbit. Rauscher understood the limitation of the 2D oscilloscope screens, and rather than a sine wave going only up and down, she proposed that it could possibly be moving in a spiral motion due to the particular speed and phase angle of the electron's rotation. The picture here on the screen is a coil. Unfortunately, it's a 2D screen, so you only see it as an up and down movement, like a sine wave, but it's actually a spiraling coil. Next, we will discuss the thermal and infrared aspect of the human body. Kinetic theory states that molecules are in constant motion, the velocity of which is directly proportional to the Kelvin temperature. The exact vibratory frequency of a molecule is determined by the strength of the bond involved in the mass of the component atoms. The frequency of a covalent bond, B covalent, between two masses m1 and m2 can be calculated by this equation, where F represents the force constant proportional to the strength of the covalent bond and c is the speed of light. The energy or frequency that characterizes the vibration of a particular bond is proportional to the bond dissociation energy. Transitory states between vibrational energies may be induced by absorption or release of infrared radiation. There is a direct correlation between the infrared spectrum and the molecular bonding frequencies. In instances of covalent bonds, the greater the change in charge distribution, the stronger the absorption in the infrared spectrum. Also, bonds to hydrogen have higher frequencies due to its lower molecular mass. Exothermic reactions, such as those involved in inflammation, release energy in the form of heat, light, or sound. These reactions result in higher entropy, negative heat flow or heat loss to the environment, decrease in enthalpy, and may occur spontaneously. Endothermic reactions, such as photosynthesis, require energy to exchange bonds. These reactions result in positive heat flow into the reaction and increase in enthalpy. Inflammatory proteins are involved in exothermic reactions and include interleukins, soluble vascular and intercellular adhesion molecules, plasma-soluble selectins, and C-reactive protein. When the body initiates an inflammatory response, these proteins begin to react and produce heat as a byproduct. The body has a method of controlling this heat via preganglionic nerve fibers in conjunction with blood vessel dilation and production of sweat. These fibers innervate at the skin surface, and hyperthermic patterns are observed using infrared or thermal imaging calibrated to the normal human range. In hypothermic conditions, preganglionic fibers stimulate blood vessels to constrict and reduce blood flow to retain heat, such as instances of nerve damage, water retention, and redirected blood flow. The heat radiating from the body outside the visible spectrum is akin to the thermosphere of the Earth and is considered a component of the biofield. Temperature plays a role in the weather surrounding the body and is one of the first measurements taken at doctor's visits to determine if their patient has a fever. Next, we will discuss visible light. The emission theory was proposed by Sir Isaac Newton, which held that light is composed of minute particles emitted by the radiant body. The first reports of biophoton emissions were in 1922 by a Russian researcher named Alexander Gershwitz, who studied the weak ultraviolet photonic radiation emitted from onion roots. In the 1970s, German scientist Fritz Albert Popp and others throughout Europe began to investigate human biophotonic emissions. Other European scientists have furthered this study and found that biophotons appear to create a holographic, coherent electromagnetic field throughout the body that uses electromagnetic frequencies for instantaneous communication throughout the system. Additional research has shown that human tissues radiate in the ultraviolet region of the spectrum. Scientists have found that where there's a wound or disease in the body, that's where more biophotons are released. In this picture, you see the fingertips of a smoker. You can see that the fingertips are emitting the photons where they hold their cigarette. In Dr. Claude Swanson's book, Life Force, The Scientific Basis, he defines biophotons as follows. Biophoton in modern quantum theory, light occurs in small packets of particles of energy called photons. In living processes, certain specific types of photons are emitted and received primarily by the DNA as well as a few large biomolecules. They serve as a function of communications, stimulation of biochemical reactions, and coordination within the body. The work of British physicist Herbert Froelich has pointed out that many biomolecules act as emitters and receivers of electromagnetic energy as carried by biophotons, as well as vibrational energy from primary cilium, and in doing so provide the frequency required to allow specific reactions within the cells. Since most of the emission and reception is thought to happen through DNA molecules, biophotons act as a synchronizing fashion throughout the organism. This phase synchronization plays a crucial role in cellular communication and coordination. The human biofield interacts with photons, energy packets of light, sometimes called subtle energy photons. Ambient light interacts with the field both when the incident rays travel toward the object and when the reflected ray bounces off the object. There are two mechanisms in physics whereby electric and magnetic fields affect photons. The Faraday effect is defined as the rotation of polarized light in response to a magnetic field. The Kerr effect describes the change in refractive index of a material in response to an applied electric field. From analyzing these two statements, it is clear the biofield around the body may influence light. Light striking the physical body may be absorbed or reflected. The speed of light is used in both quantum and astrophysics calculations as it has importance at both the atomic and cosmic level. Light has been shown to affect the body in many ways and is now used in medicine to treat the body. Dr. Seth Pancoast wrote Blue and Red Lights, or Light and Its Rays as Medicine, in 1877, with the more well-known Dr. Edwin D. Babbitt writing The Principles of Light and Color in 1878, which sparked research into the use of light as a treatment for disease. Dinshaw Gadiali, a Zoroastrian immigrant to America, developed a system known as spectrochrometry in 1920. He outlined the effects of shining various colored light onto the body. Green, which is in the middle of the spectrum, is used as a balancing color for the body to reach equilibrium. Interestingly, magenta is presented as the same wavelength as green, but from the reverse direction or opposite polarity. Scarlet as the reverse of turquoise, and purple the reverse of lemon. Purple is used by royalty, the Pope wears magenta, and the cardinals of Rome wear scarlet. He believes the rainbow is actually a toroid, and that scarlet, magenta, and purple complete the traditional view of red to violet. Each color produces a specific response from the body. If an organ was underactive and needed stimulating, red was shown onto that area, red being the slowest wavelength of visible light. It is known as a hot color as it is closest to the infrared spectrum and the initiating color of visible light. If an organ was overactive and needed to calm, violet was used as it is a cold color and closer to the ultraviolet spectrum. In Dinshaw's Spectrochrometry Encyclopedia, he states, the 7 spectral colors make 3 pairs, red and blue, orange and indigo, yellow and violet. Green, the apex color, has no affinity. It stands in its might as lonely as a creator, matchless, unmatched. It can have no complement, no partner, because 7 colors cannot be paired. The 7th color will under any circumstance be left unjunctioned. He referred to green as the governing wave, and through his tonation system used it for cerebral equilibrator, physical equilibrator, pituitary stimulant and equilibrator, stimulates the rebuilding of muscles and tissues, destroys microorganisms, germs, bacteria, cleanses and prevents decay. When a person came in for a session, he would always start with green, a 1-hour color tonation of green to help bring the body into balance. In 1951, Russian scientist S.V. Krakow found the color red stimulated the sympathetic portion of the autonomic nervous system, while the color blue stimulated the parasympathetic portion. It was later confirmed by the research of Robert Gerard, which demonstrated that the autonomic nervous system and visual cortex were significantly less aroused when stimulated by blue or white light than when stimulated by red light. Laser is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. In 1965, Paul McGuff, MD, used ruby lasers to destroy tumors in both rats and humans. Photobiomodulation using low-level laser stimulation began to be used in clinical practice 40 years ago, and extensive research into cellular, tissue, and organ responses to various wavelengths of coherent light have been ongoing for over 3 decades. Tina Caru's research into the cellular response to various colored lasers explores the potential to use coherent light to stimulate changes on the cellular level. Adipose tissue-derived stem cells have shown an increase in proliferation rates and mitochondrial membrane potential after irradiation at 532 nanometers using a green laser. Next, we will discuss plasma and bioplasma. Research has shown the electrical nature of the universe, which rather than being an empty vacuum is now seen as being filled with electrically charged plasma. In Donald Scott's The Electric Sky, he states, "Plasma is described as forming twisting filaments, cells, and sheets. The sheets are formed at the outer boundaries of the plasma field. They are called double-layer sheets and have a higher electrical charge than the ambient plasma within the boundary defined by the sheath. When plasma in arc mode, like lightning or a plasma welder, travels across distances and time, it forms helical twisting filaments called Birkeland currents that spiral around each other. Just as the Sun is dense plasma and surrounded by a diffuse magnetic plasma bounded by a double-layer sheath, the heliosphere, and the Earth has a magnetosphere, so does the human body appear to also have its own magnetic plasma atmosphere and outer boundary. Since the 1950s, Dr. Viktor Anyushin at Kazakh University in Russia has also done extensive research in the biofield, or as he referred to it, the human energy field. He suggests the existence of a bioplasmic energy field composed of ions, free protons, and free electrons. He suggests that the bioplasmic energy field is a fifth state of matter after solids, liquids, gases, and plasma. Anyushin's work shows that the bioplasmic particles are in constant motion and constantly renewed by chemical processes in the cells. There is a balance of positive and negative particles within the bioplasma that is relatively stable. A severe shift in the balance causes a change in the health of the patient or organism. Barbara Brennan, former NASA physicist and world-renowned energy healer, also refers to the human energy field as a bioplasma, and sees trauma as frozen or stuck energy within this bioplasmic medium. Next, I will discuss the layers of the biofield. The layers of the Earth's atmosphere change according to gas composition, pressure, and temperature as it expands into gravity-free space. As the Earth's atmospheric layers are well proven, it is now time to explore the subtle changes in the layers of the human atmosphere as described in ancient writings. Traditional Chinese medicine, they mention the three energy fields associated with the physical body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body. It is widely recorded in Vedic texts that there are 7 interpenetrating layers of the biofield: the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, the causal body, the celestial body, the etheric body, and the soul. The Kore of the esoteric literature of the Zoroastrian tradition describes 9 layers of the human body as outlined below. The first layer of the human body is the densest physical layer known as the skeleton. All organs, systems, muscles, flesh, and skin comprise the second layer. The third is also a physical layer, an etheric, fluid-like substance that flows in and out of the skin. This layer is considered part of the physical biofield and plays an important role of removing the etheric toxins from the body. Toxins and excess energy are expelled directly through the skin via perspiration and/or acupuncture points. They do not rely on an excretory system like the kidney, bladder, and urinary tract for liquids, or the intestines and bowels for solids. The fourth layer is known as the aura. The gross outline of the body's energy plexi, or chakras, is observed in this layer. The etheric field of the aura is the densest of all the energy bodies and is closely related to the physical. It is thought to extend up to 2 centimeters beyond the surface of the skin. The fifth layer represents life force carrying the physical gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, as well as the vibrational currents. This is also known as the mental body. The sixth or astral layer carries the emotional desires and the most intimate thoughts, which are translated through the soul. The seventh layer is the 9 light-layered soul that nestles in the heart chakra and is ultimately responsible for all physical, biological, and chemical functions. The 8th layer is the celestial body and the spiritual awareness of the divine, universal natural laws. This is the soul's self-creating journey back to the Godhead and stardom. The 9th layer, the etheric body, is the spiritual connection of the soul with the Godhead. Sound and biofield researcher Eileen McCusick has put forth the biofield anatomy hypothesis based on her research that suggests that mind and memory are found in standing waves in the diffuse magnetic field that surrounds the body. She has found that specific memories appear to be stored in specific regions within this field, at a distance of up to 5 feet away from the body and sometimes more. McCusick postulates that traumatic memories produce incoherent oscillations with the biofield which can create dysfunction in the physical body, and she has been able to locate and modulate specific chaotic patterns related to specific instances or time periods in people's lives. McCusick theorizes that the standing waves of the biofield are held in place by a double-layer plasma membrane at the outer boundary of the field, similar to a cell membrane, and as related to plasma physics, the magnetosphere of the Earth and the heliosphere of the Sun. In her master's thesis, she shares her experience of finding a 4-inch zone and a 10-inch zone away from the body where the tuning fork feels like it has hit a denser energy or a high-pressure system. Dennis Milner, in his book The Loom of Creation, recounts his observations of distinct biofield layers with geometric shapes of biophotonic emissions at differing levels, which gives evidence of a subtle structure of light around the body. He used an electrographic technique similar to Kirlian photography and is noted for being a pioneer researcher in this field in the 1970s in London. Next, I will discuss vital energy. Vital energy is a concept that underlies several ancient and integrative healing techniques and is known by different names depending on cultural origin. In China, vital energy is referred to as qi. In Ayurvedic medicine, it is known as prana. It is called ki in Japanese medicine and ru in Unani. Next, I will discuss acupuncture points. The acupuncture points stimulate and release the flow of qi along the meridians. These points are known to be physical structures which have been stimulated, needled, and monitored by millions throughout the world, and have been fixed, stained, and viewed under microscopy, shown here. Robert Becker has measured increased DC electrical conductivity on acupuncture points with a difference of up to 70,000 ohms between the skin's resistance on an acupuncture point than on any other part of the skin's surface. Galvanic skin response devices are often used to measure the electrical activity of acupuncture points to help assist in diagnosing the health status of a person. The apparatus for meridian identification measures electrical activity at the Jingwell acupuncture points located at the base of the fingers and toes. The electrodermal characteristics, conductance, and polarization at these points are analyzed to determine pathology and overall well-being. In the Vedas, they discuss marma and varma points, which are also energetic points on the body, which some are known to benefit a person's well-being, and some points can be detrimental to health. Some of the Chinese acupuncture points overlap with marma points, others are completely different. Next, I will discuss the meridians, nadis, and the premovascular system. In traditional Chinese medicine, they have mapped the meridian system in detail and have used it to increase health and wellness for thousands of years. Research scientists in China and Germany have used infrared or thermal imaging and moxibustion, the application of heat to an acupuncture point, to capture images of thin lines of thermal activity along the associated meridian. So instead of being able to see the meridians drawn on a doll, you're able to actually see the meridians on a human body. In ancient Indian philosophy and Ayurvedic medicine, it is believed that in addition to the physical body, there is a subtle body composed of various energetic anatomic structures, including the 7 chakras, nadis, pranas, vayus, and koshas, the yogic sheaths or bodies. The Vedas in the Hindu system describe and map the Nadi system, which is a series of 72,000 channels used to analyze health and improve vitality. Thin filaments, referred to as Bonghan ducts, were discovered by Bonghan Kim in North Korea, then further studied by Professor So at Seoul University using modern dissection techniques. These tubules, referred to as Bonghan ducts, were later found in blood vessels, the lymphatic system, and on the surface of organs. Here you can see a tiny thread-like structure in the blood vessel on the left, and on the right you can see stained blue these little tiny threads that run through the lymphatic system. According to Bonghan Kim, during the embryonic developmental and evolutionary processes, the Bonghan system develops earlier than the blood or the nervous systems. After consultation, Professor So renamed the thread-like structure the premovascular system. You can learn more about them on PubMed.gov by searching either the Bonghan system or the premovascular system. Next, I will discuss the dantians, chakras, and nerve plexi. In Chinese philosophy and medicine, there are 3 important energy centers called dantians, which store and emit qi from the Taiji pole, or the center core of the body. The lower dantian is situated in the lower abdomen and relates to the energy field of the physical body. The middle dantian is located in the center of the chest and is associated with the energy field of the emotional body surrounding the physical body. The third dantian is located inside the middle of the head and relates the spiritual field of energy that surrounds the physical and emotional bodies. The 7 major chakras or energy centers are spinning vortices of energy along the midline of the body. The chakras spin at their own specific frequencies, with the slowest spinning chakra at the base and the highest at the crown. The chakras are said to draw in energy from the universal energy field and then distribute it via the nadis of the etheric body to the cells in the physical body. The chakras are spinning vortices that open to absorb required solar and cosmic vibrations and to eliminate etheric toxins. Each chakra or energy center therefore acts as a transponder. Their function is to transmute lower frequencies into higher frequencies and vice versa. The Vedas are scientific manuals for the structure and function of the chakras and nadis. In human anatomy, the chakras correlate to areas where there are nerve plexi along the vagus nerve, which runs along the midline of the body. Endocrine glands are associated with the chakras. Thoughts, emotions, hormones all produce changes in electrical activity at the nerve plexi and alter the subtle atmosphere surrounding the human body. The 7 major chakras are related to the 7 major musical notes and the 7 colors of the rainbow. The 7 heavenly virtues and the 7 deadly sins have also been speculated to relate to the chakras. The deadly sin at the crown is pride, and the heavenly virtue at the crown is humility. Next, I want to discuss some tools that are used for biofield detection. First, the Lesher antenna. Ernst Lesher is known as the pioneer of high-frequency measurement and the mind behind Lesher lines, a method for measuring the length and frequency of electric waves. The Lesher antenna is 2 parallel conductors which act as a transmission line on which you can detect very high and ultra-high frequency electromagnetic waves. This technology has the capacity to measure tiny fluctuations in the particle fields around all objects. The Lesher antenna corresponds to a closed line with one of its ends emitting energy in response to what it is exposed to. The cursor bar can be adjusted to different emissions or frequencies and generates a wave motion when it meets a congruent signal or energetic match. This has been used to measure the ultra-high frequency electromagnetic waves generated by the human body to measure the depth and symmetry of the biofield. In the early 1900s, Dr. Walter Kilner, a medical doctor at St. Thomas's Hospital in London, developed color screens to allow him to observe 3 distinct layers of the biofield. The etheric layer, or etheric double, extending less than 1 centimeter from the body and following its contour. The inner aura, rudimentary structure being striated, and the outer aura, more diffuse than the other layers. These color screens were thin glass cells containing colored coal tar, dicyanin dyes, and alcohol. The operator would stare at a color screen in front of a bright light for 30 seconds or longer, then look at a person standing in front of a black wall. The eyes become saturated to that color and more sensitive to other colors, including those in the near ultraviolet range. He also found people could produce rays which extend from their body using the power of their will. Dr. Valerie Hunt, a professor of kinesiology at the University of California, developed a method of detecting certain peaks of high-frequency electrical impulses on the body's surface in areas associated with the chakras using microvoltage sensors and canceling the 250 Hz pulse frequency of the motor nerves to reduce artifact. The resulting frequency spectrum of these signals showed patterns unexpected of white noise. She then expanded her research to include persons who claimed to be clairvoyant. They found correlations between the frequency patterns measured and the colors reported by the clairvoyants. In her book, The Infinite Mind, she gives further details and data reported from her research into the measurements of the chakras. The sensors used in Hunt's machine went off the market, and the subtle detection system had to be made from scratch. It was re-engineered by Paul Mawson and presented to me in 2015 as the Biofield Visualization Recorder. The system is sensitive enough to detect electric fields from the other electronics in a laboratory, as well as power lines, which requires researchers to study in more remote areas. In the picture to the right, you can see me running the laptop. Our research participant was sent from the Himalayas. He was selected by a group of international scientists from the Kundalini Research Project. You can see that the sensors are placed on his back. This is to reduce the artifact from breathing and the movement of the chest. He pointed to where he felt his chakras, and I placed the sensors on either side, and someone else placed the sensors on his base chakra. The laptop was only able to measure about 5 minutes worth of data just because of the amount of information that it was recording. And so I hit play, and he was not able to raise his Kundalini. After we went back to the lab, and he said that it was because I was in his energy field as a woman, and it just so happened that on that day I started my menstrual cycle. So I mentioned this to the group, and I also said that where I'm from in the Black Hills of South Dakota, that women who are on their period are more powerful during that time. And also from a physics perspective, there was a lot more iron and magnetism down in the lower part of my body, moving in the opposite direction than he would be moving energy in his body. Also, from a subatomic electricity aspect, XX is atomically more dense than XY chromosomes as well. So we wanted to be able to study this a little bit more. We had him go into a room, and he raised his Kundalini, and I was on the other side of the lab. And so they brought me in once the energy was shifting, and I sat down next to him, and he crumpled like a rag doll. So for me, I was pretty disappointed because I wanted to collect this data for my preliminary research for my PhD. And when I came back to the United States, I was telling this to a couple of friends of mine who were American, and they didn't have that same belief in their culture. And I told them I'm on my period, and I touched their arm, and they didn't crumple like a rag doll because they don't believe that women on their period are going to take their energy away, so they don't. We did try this experiment again, where we went back up to the top of the mountain. I showed a man how to hit record, and I went over to a region away from the testing site, back behind a wall, and I even put my mind on something else so that even mentally I wasn't connected to the research project. And he also wasn't able to raise his Kundalini then either. So after this project, I was no longer interested in studying men from the Himalayas, but I was very interested in the power of the period. Sensors are placed on either side of the chakra to measure the microvoltage changes which may occur when a person directs their attention to these areas through meditation. An example of the display, which features the graph of the nerve plexus or the chakra's microvoltage reading, is shown here. So when I was first trained on this equipment, we put these sensors on either side of the chakra on this man that I know. And the solar plexus had a much higher reading than any of the other areas on the body. So I said, this area can relate to anger, and it can also relate to our relationship with our mother and father. And as soon as I said father, there was a really high burst in the electrical activity. And then I said, wow, did you see what happened when I said the word father? And the signal went off the charts again. And then I said, wow, every time I say father, and it went off again, I said it lights up. Now, with this particular person, I know that his relationship with his own father was very strained. And also his relationship with his children was also strained. So even him as a father was also a strained relationship. So I know that that word may have been like a trigger word for him. So I found it interesting how with this system we could even see how words can shift a person's energy field. Sound has been used commonly in medicine to break up kidney stones by lithotripsy. The work of John Bilyeu has also shown that the single pure tones produced by tuning forks and Tibetan or crystal singing bowls causes the body to produce nitric oxide, which induces blood vessel dilation and a relaxation response in the body. Tuning forks can also be used to locate the outer boundary of the biofield in a similar way that the Lesher antenna or dowsing rods can. When inserted into a region of greater electric charge, they will produce a louder tone than when in a more diffuse region of the field. Tuning forks can be used like sonar to listen to and ping the space around the body to find areas of dissonance. The insertion of a coherent frequency into an incoherent area will cause the body to spontaneously auto-tune itself, often resulting in relaxation. Next, I will discuss infrared or thermal cameras. Initially, thermal imagers were used in research which only showed a temperature pattern, but were not calibrated to measure specific temperatures. Recently, military-grade radiometric cameras which measure the absolute skin surface temperature have become available and are being used in research. Pixel resolution has also improved, which provides high-definition radiometric images to now be used in biofield research and to further validate the use of infrared imaging with quantitative thermal analysis. Thermal imaging has become most recognized for its use in detecting physiological abnormalities in the breast. Over time, a tumor outgrows the surrounding vasculature and requires a new blood supply. The neovascularization of breast tumors can be detected by medical thermal imaging years before it is visible on a mammogram. The high metabolic activity of the tumor can be monitored as the heat reaches the skin surface and produces a thermal asymmetry with linear vascular patterns. As there is no compression, it has been used for monitoring women with breast implants to monitor for body rejection, material fatigue, or inflammation from infection. So a mammogram, it compresses the breast. So if the tumor, which is encapsulated, if it's compressed too hard, it can rupture that encapsulation. And then the radiation can also cause it to spread. So every time you get a mammogram, it increases your risk of breast cancer by 5%. And it's cumulative. So if you get a mammogram every year for 10 years, you have a 50-50% chance of getting breast cancer just by being screened for breast cancer. So with thermal imaging, it's measuring the heat radiating from your body rather than putting radiation into your body. It is a useful tool for studying therapies such as acupuncture or qigong, which work on the energetic level. This is a progression of pictures of an acupuncture treatment for osteoarthritis in the knee. Pictures are taken before acupuncture and then over a span of 30 minutes demonstrating the effectiveness of treatment to both practitioner and the client. So in this first image, you see a lot of heat and inflammation there in the knee. And then in the second image, you see these little tiny blue lines that the acupuncture needles. And then these pictures are taken every 5 minutes and you can just watch the heat dissipating out of the body. And in that last image, you can see there's still a few hot spots. So that also shows the client that they need to come back and have another session. But it also shows that the session's working. These are pictures I took showing the hands of a Qigong master before and after mentally intending to raise Qi, or the energy or heat in the palms of her hands. The photo shows the power of focused thought and intention. So in the top image, you'll see in that left palm a rectangle, which is measuring the average temperature in that space. And then on the bottom picture, I did the same area, and we measured the average temperature for those two areas on the palms. So the average temperature, there was a 1.13 degree shift, which a 1 degree shift is considered significant in the medical literature. So the research that we did here, although it was one person, it would be considered significant. Next, I'll discuss Kirlian photography. Semyon Kirlian was a Russian electrician who found by accident that an object on a photographic plate subjected to a high-voltage electric field produced an image of the object with a coronal discharge or colored halo. Kirlian photography allows visualization of the plasma emissions from biological systems. Each sample is placed on the surface of a quartz plate, which is then stimulated with a high-voltage electric charge, which in turn stimulates the release of gas and biophotons via the dielectric effect. The electricity stimulates the body's inner atmosphere, similar to neon gas illuminating when electricity is introduced. If a person put their hand on the plate, the etheric emission would glow along the outline of the hands with varying degrees of density and fractality of biophotons. This technology has been used for product testing in industry to determine the quality and vibrancy of ingredients in order to optimize the energetic aspects of the final product prior to market. Next, I'll discuss the triaxial meter. The triaxial meter detects changes in electric, magnetic, and electromagnetic fields. Sensitive versions have been used to monitor invisible fields in homes, offices, buildings, or other areas where a person spends a lot of time. Old wiring and appliances can give off invisible fields which can affect people in various ways. If a person uses a microwave to heat food, then the triaxial meter can measure the changes in the kitchen as a result of using the appliance. Microwaves can leak radiation, which is invasive to the electromagnetic aspect of the body. The environment in which a person lives can be detrimental to their health. Wireless networks in apartment buildings often overlap floors, and people can log on to 20 different modems at one time, means that there are 20 different electromagnetic radiations pulsing through a person's body even when they are resting. These meters bring attention to these invisible areas in a person's environment, which then allows them to make educated decisions on whether to remove these invisible stressors or not. To conclude, the biofield is an exciting frontier of discovery that has endless research potential. Emerging research and cross-disciplinary collaboration is bringing greater understanding to the anatomy and physiology of the human biofield, and new technologies are being developed daily to investigate ever more subtle signals from the body. A new scientific consensus is beginning to emerge about our electrical nature. Biofield therapies and technologies hold promise for a more gentle and effective approach to supporting health. I'd like to end with a quote from Nikola Tesla. "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Thank you for your time.